Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady here with a weekly garden tour. We are in the middle of April and the garden has suddenly turned green because we've had several thunderstorms this week, and it's just been an extraordinary thing to be able to see everything truly come back to life. And it's been a remarkable week for me. I got my second dose of Moderna, and though I had the reaction that a lot of people describe, being, the fever and body aches for about 36 hours, I'm so grateful to have received this vaccine. I celebrated my 42nd birthday, and today I'm actually hosting my first garden party since well before the pandemic, well over a year ago. And I am just so excited to be able to see this garden with some of my friends and family. I'll get to see my parents for the first time since July, and I'm just so excited to be able to finally share this garden with other people live and in person. I'm a real extrovert, and pandemic life has been a challenge for everyone, and for extroverts like me, it's been an opportunity to learn a lot about yourself and, understand how privileged we have always been to be able to go out and socialize. And I get energy from people. Talking to my cell phone is still super weird to me, even though intellectually I appreciate like people following and commenting and liking. It brings me so much joy. It's like almost as good as having you here in person. But that's why I'm so stoked to be having our spring open house or open garden on May 8th from noon to 4. Anybody that is nearby, it'll be a great opportunity for you to actually come and see the garden live and in person, smell it and touch it. I'm gonna have plants available and books and seeds, and it's really just gonna be a super fun afternoon garden party. We'll of course follow all of the safety protocols necessary, but my husband and I will be fully vaccinated by then. So without hesitation, let's go on a full garden tour, because I have a really busy morning ahead where I have to set up for my garden party this afternoon. We'll just start right here in the backyard with the feed tank bed, which is exceeding all of my expectations. That Ms. America mustard is like my new complete obsession. Now, we did have some heavy rain last night, so it's kind of bent it over on one side. I'm actually gonna come through and just sort of readjust it. That way the plants aren't leaning over the tank, if I can. And the garlic, I posted a garlic video yesterday with a lot of information, but we're starting to get garlic scapes. So if you planted hardneck garlic last fall, be on the lookout, remove those scapes and eat them. They're delicious. Now the barley is really starting to come to life, you guys. Like, it's been to life this whole winter, but when it starts putting out its flowers, that's when I get so excited. And actually the sweet peas are starting to really get a lot taller, and I've seen some color on some buds, so probably next week's tour will include sweet peas. And of course this pinkster azalea here, which has been putting on such an incredible show, and the swallowtail butterflies love it. I just love this plant. I have about 6 different native azaleas, and I need to collect a whole lot more. Now, I wouldn't normally plant this in full sun. When I planted this, there was a gigantic Bradford pear here. And of course, that fell in a hurricane like Bradfords do. They're useless trees. But I had a shade bed here, and now of course it's full sun. This is, that is south exposure, east this way, west this way. And it's done really well. When people always comment when they see pictures of this, I think actually that they are well suited for more bright exposure. Now I did put a a crepe myrtle in hopes that that will eventually provide it some shade. But overall, I'd recommend the pinkster azaleas to grow in maybe not as dense a shade so you get a better bloom set. I did post a poppy update earlier this week, but you can see the self-sown poppies are enormous and they'll be blooming very soon. Pleased to see that my persimmons are leafing out, and the neolithia, it just keeps on putting on new growth, which is so beautiful. I wish you could feel it. It's just the softest, most velvety texture. It's just an extraordinary plant. I love the flowers, but I think I like the new growth even better. And we're to this border. I did a viburnum tour and I realized last year I had trimmed a lot of viburnums way back, and that means they won't flower this season. I was like, gosh, I have more viburnums than that, but like here's a Shasta that I trimmed hard because this was like actually all the way up to the roof, and it was just sort of overtaking this bed. It's not really the right place for it, but you know, the trunk is enormous. I don't think I can really show you, but I'm not gonna dig it out. It's, you know, that's way beyond my capacity of transplanting. Again, these self-sown poppies are they're rocking. And you see how big the garlic has gotten. These containers look really nice. I have a couple new container videos that I'll be posting. Like I just planted some basil and I've been using it. And there's that self-sown lettuce that I planted in a video a few weeks ago. That's ready to be harvested, first round. I'm always amazed at how vigorous the sedums can be. Like, this used to be a solid bed of strawberries, which I really prefer. I need to get in here and rip out some of the sedum. So I'll probably have some of the sedum available at the open house on March 8th. Now we have reset the wall, and I am gonna go to a garden center maybe tomorrow with my parents and get some plants for this side. And kind of created a little coffee nook here, and then this side is what greets you when you pull into the driveway. The winter wall is definitely coming to fruition. I'm really happy with it. I've been harvesting a lot of parsley, and the snapdragons are like on the verge of blooming. My mom, who lives 4.5 hours south of me, was showing me her snapdragons, and I got really jealous. I've got some floating arrangements in preparation for today, though I need to probably refresh these. I made those on my birthday on Friday. And my birthday present was my joggling board. And if you're not familiar with the joggling board, this is kind of a low country piece of furniture, and you can fit multiple people across it, and you go side to side instead of back and forth like a rocking chair. So it's great if you have a really narrow front porch like we do. So, you know, this is our only covered area. So it rains and we want to sit outside. This is it. This is like, what, 4 foot deep? It's so impractically narrow. I've also just done a video on mint. But here is my mint bed, which we do use for mojitos. But you see, it is encased in concrete. I don't generally recommend anyone plant mint in the ground, but I don't want to be a hypocrite. So you see, I do have it. So one of the things that we noticed from that frost that we had 2 weeks ago is that there were a lot of trees that were starting to leaf out, and many of those trees have had their new growth burn off because of the cold. And that's the case here with this Celtis sinensis. This is a really cool weeping form that we're trying to train to be a shade tree here at our front porch. And my husband, David, noticed the other day that the only leaves that didn't die are the ones that were adjacent to these incandescent cafe lights, which we keep on during the nighttime. And I think that's just a really great trick. We used to do that with vegetables when I would grow under hoops with plastic, and we would put incandescent lights in there when it got really cold. And here it is, proof in action. The only leaves that didn't get burned in the frost that we had are the ones that were adjacent to the lights. I am a little worried that this bed that I replanted earlier in the spring is getting too much sun now for some of the things, especially the rhodia that I transplanted here last year. So when I transplanted these, I still had, you know, that huge trachycarpus and a salix and all these other existing shrubs that I have now taken out. So it's on my plan for this week to actually remove the rhodias and put those in a new shady area under a live oak. But this bed has really just filled in. It's super cheerful. The broccolis are starting to produce little heads. Hopefully these will get bigger. And those anemone, they just keep on blooming. I am so in love with these. And I've been using them for cut flowers. So I highly, highly recommend that. But you can see here, the poppies are really, they're elongating every single day. And there's Cubby guarding the poppies. So the front garden, right now it's reading a little bit chaotic. But I know from experience that once the flowers start popping, it'll all make sense. And like the barley is just starting to put out its flowers, and like the larkspur and poppies are probably still a few weeks off, but the bachelor buttons are already starting to show a little bit of color. So I do have a whole lot of salad greens that I need to be harvesting. Look at that. Is that not the most beautiful, ready to eat salad? So I will be gathering some stuff for this afternoon's little shindig out of this bed. And the tulips from bulbs.com have just been fantastic. What a great mix this was. I think this was like their spring cut flower mix. And that's where the anemones came from as well. Flowerbulbs.com. Really easy to order from and high quality products. Well, the wave bed is getting taller and taller. I haven't seen any. Oh, yes I do. I see some barley flowers starting. So this show is gonna get on. You can definitely see the difference between the first half, which I planted in November on Black Friday, versus the second half, which is lower. I had hoped naively that they would catch up to one another, and they still might, but there's definitely a size difference. There's no questioning that. But that's okay. That'll extend the show a bit longer. Again, I'm really disappointed with the poppy set in here, but you can see there's a lot of larkspur. So it's still gonna have, you know, some color and dynamic texture, just not the combo that I was really aiming for. And over here, I'm really pleased that even though this bed is getting like super shady now because the live oak has grown so much, that, you know, all this stuff self-sowed. I didn't actually sow any seeds over here. And I love the combination of larkspur and mustard together. That curly mustard is just such a beautiful texture. It's actually really great in cut flower arrangements too. So as we walk along the north side of the house, you can see that the Japanese maples are pretty fully leafed out. And we're getting kind of the last few blossoms on camellias. That's October Affair. Royal Velvet, still putting out some blooms. We've got some trilliums in flower. Everything is definitely coming back to life in full spring gear. But here is what I have been meaning to make a video about. my other lilacs, which I still haven't gotten name confirmation on, which is super annoying. But I think the one that's really worth talking about is this dark purple one with larger flowers all the way up. And that is Lilac Sunday. So this lilac really does smell like what a lilac is supposed to smell like. Oh gosh, again, I know I've already said this in video, but it's like so reminiscent of my childhood. I had lilacs planted outside my bedroom window in Michigan growing up, and oh, I love it. I just love it so much. So this is variety Lilac Sunday, which again is a hybrid. I need to do some research to actually figure out what its parentage is, because I don't remember. But another one from the U.S. National Arboretum's breeding program that has done really well here in warm zone 7. I mean, look at all those flowers. It's a tall variety, whereas Excel, you can see over here, is much shorter, in part because I've had to trim so much of it off, because it's just had so much dieback. But it's still flowering. It's not as fragrant now because these flowers are kind of spent. So if you want to extend your lilac season, these really are the two that I would recommend. One of the Hyacinthiflora hybrids, and then add Lilac Sunday to your must-have list. I did that video on Poppy Update, but just to sort of reiterate, the experiment that I did in February, I didn't get any poppies to germinate. And there were some really wise comments that people posted about why perhaps they didn't germinate. And again, I need to do a little more research on fully understanding the stratification cycle of once the seed is in the ground. But there's definitely a relationship between the soil temperature and the seed getting it to germinate, which is why here in zone 7, I recommend sowing your poppies in late November and early December. Now, you can still see some frost damage. Of course, hydrangeas are notorious for, like, yeah, they're just the highest maintenance plant you can grow. This is why I did the viburnum video. So if you like the flowers of hydrangea, grow viburnums. You can see all of these hydrangeas were, leafed out and got nipped. But they'll grow out of it. It's fine. Along this border, the blueberries, this variety is Sunshine Blue. This is already finished flowering. And you can see, like, little baby blueberries are starting to form. But my more favorite variety is in full flower right now. And that's right here around this corner. And this is Powder Blue. And it's really funny because these are all the same cultivar, but if you look over here, this one on the last is just late. I don't understand why. I hope it's not sick, but I don't think it is. I vaguely remember this happening last year, that it just sort of leafed out later. You see the bees are having a time with all of these blueberry flowers, and it's just, I think it's just a plant that is great for year-round interest. We're so lucky to have this as a native shrub. And then below that, it's a great stand of strawberries. So again, blueberries and strawberries are really great to pair together to maximize that space for extending your harvest. Now, I can't not show you the barley in these pots, because this is the barley that was first to bloom. Honestly, it's probably the first barley I planted. The barley blooming is generally related to when it was sown, and it's just so extraordinary. And this is a really simple pot. That is just curly parsley and barley together. And I think it's really elegant and quite pretty. And you can see the rains have definitely knocked back the arugula, and to the point where I've missed actually harvesting asparagus because the arugula is covering it all. This border is looking good, and the figs, which were you know, fried from the frost, are starting to leaf back out, so they'll be fine. But I'm really excited. This bit of cauliflower is the best cauliflower I have. A lot of my cauliflower that I planted earlier has started bolting, I guess because of the temperatures. And that's exactly what happens. It just, you see that? It just bolts, it just goes to flower. So that's fine. I'm gonna let some things go to flower and seed. It benefits pollinators. You can really see these poppies have really filled in. I think this is gonna be the prettiest part of the whole garden. This little kind of back corner nook that you really have to walk to see. And you guys, I see some color on the first columbine. Look at that. Hot diggity. I have sown a lot of columbine in here, and they can be kind of extremely seedy, but they're easy enough to pull out. Here's an example of, you know, broccoli that just bolted. It never really made a head. Super strange. And over in here you can see a really nice stand of California poppies. That's that ferny silver leaf foliage in there. Some container updates. I did this foodscape container this week. It's growing really well. And all of the, see, this is like where I'm starting to stockpile things to have available during the open house, but all of the tomatoes that I potted up last weekend are doing great. And everything is starting to germinate except the peppers. I expect the peppers will probably germinate next week. But I was so excited to see these popping up. This is the seed from Florette Flower from Erin's new book, Discovering Dahlias. So these are all dahlia seedlings. And then I have some new to me varieties of allium, different onions that I've just sprouted as well. Speaking of seed, the tomatoes are definitely coming along. I'm really pleased. I'm really glad they weren't this big when we got frosted. But they're doing great. You can see I was a little heavy-handed in some of the seeds. This is San Marzano, or one of my favorite paste varieties. I'll probably tease some of these apart. But, you know, for the most part, it's really to your benefit when you only put one seed per cell, because it makes it really easy to transplant. From experience, all of these are growing really great. Cream sausage is my favorite tomato, so I sowed a lot of it because it's one you'll never find at garden centers, and I want to make sure that I have an ample amount to be able to offer people when they come to visit during the open house on May 8th. Can you tell I'm excited to see people? Just like that, this is a shade bed again. It can be really hard to remember. It's in the winter, you know, all these deciduous trees. But I have some plans for this area. I need to do some pruning on those ligustrums and really on all of these shrubs, just to tame them down. And again, I'm really excited for the spring show to get started, and it's just a few days away now. Like the first open larkspur is the day that it counts, right? So there will be larkspur blooming sooner than later. All these borders have filled out so well. I'm just really pleased. It's always good to know your efforts weren't in vain. And this no-name viburnum really is the star of this garden right now, and it's also favored by a lot of pollinators, especially swallowtails. I of course lost the label, so I can't tell you what variety it is. I'm sure it's in there somewhere. It's just that it's a jungle, and I actually have a 50-gallon tank of water that you can't really even see, but it's filled with frogs, and they get really aggravated when I mess around with them. So I've just sort of given up the hope of ever finding the label for that. This side property border is filling up. You can see the larkspur are just about ready to open. And the limonium, or the money plant behind it, is so beautiful. And you know, this is cool when it's in flower, but this is the one that gets those like clear, like coin-like seeds. So it's gonna look cool for a really long time. I've wanted this plant for so long. My friends in Charlotte gave me this seed years ago, and I'm so excited to finally have it established here. Of course, more strawberries. And then the final bed to show you is full of blooming viburnums. And they just are so cheerful. That's popcorn back there with the smaller flowers. Here is macrocephalum, these gigantic snowballs. And here is one of my favorite varieties, Kern's Pink, which hasn't fully opened yet, but you get the idea that it's actually a pink flowered viburnum plicatum. So really beautiful plants on a beautiful day. I hope you've enjoyed today's garden tour update, and I hope that if you live nearby, you will consider coming over for a visit on May 8th between noon and 4 p.m. I have linked the information below in the description. And I thank you all so much for your support and interest, and for you know, interacting with me on this platform, because you really have been kind of my thing that I look forward to through this pandemic. And I wish you all good health and wellness, and I hope that you have a wonderful weekend, and that soon you will get to see your family and friends like we are going to today.